Somewhere inside you is a warning system that has never once been wrong for 2 million years and has never once been right for the last 70. It's the reason you can't stop eating at 11 p.m. even when you're not hungry. It's the reason sugar feels like a reward. And it's been quietly running unnoticed your entire life. You didn't choose it. You can't turn it off. And for almost your entire time on this planet, it kept you alive. Let's go back to where it started. For roughly 2 million years, your ancestors lived in a world with no guarantees. Not next week, not tomorrow, sometimes not for months at a time. A drought could wipe out the plants. A bad season could scatter the herds. A single fail hunt could mean days with nothing. In that world, there was no fridge to fall back on, no stored grain in a warehouse, no emergency backup plan except the one your body could carry inside itself. So evolution built one. Fat isn't just stored energy. Fat is survival, sealed in a container you carry everywhere you go. Every extra calorie your ancestors could hold on to was a few more days they could last if the food disappeared. And food disappeared constantly. This is where it gets interesting. The humans who are best at storing fat efficiently, who crave calorie-dense food the hardest, who held on to reserves the longest, were exactly the humans who survived the next famine. The ones who burned through calories fast, who didn't crave rich food, who didn't store easily, they didn't make it as often. Generation after generation, nature quietly selected for hoarding. You're not descended from the humans who were relaxed about food. You are descended from the most efficient famine preppers who ever lived. Every one of your ancestors, going back tens of thousands of generations, survived at least one period of real scarcity. Most survived dozens. That is not a metaphor. That is your bloodline. In the 1960s, a geneticist named James Neel looked at this pattern and gave it a name: the thrifty gene hypothesis. His idea was simple. If your ancestors regularly faced famine, then the genes that helped store fat efficiently during feast periods would spread through the population, because the people carrying them survived the lean periods that followed. Feast, store, survive, famine, repeat. For 2 million years, Neel was originally trying to explain something that looked like a medical mystery. Certain populations, people who had gone through recent, severe famine within just a few generations, showed unusually high rates of obesity and diabetes once Western food became available to them. It didn't make sense under normal genetics, until you realized their bodies weren't malfunctioning. They were doing exactly what they were built to do, storing everything they could, as fast as they could, because the last time food was scarce, that instinct is what kept their family alive. But here's the part that's even stranger. This programming doesn't just survive inside a bloodline over thousands of years. It can be written into a single body, in a single season, and passed down to children who never experienced the famine at all. Between 1944 and 1945, in the final months of the Second World War, the Nazi occupation cut off food supplies to the Western Netherlands. It became known as the Dutch Hunger Winter. For months, adults survived on fewer than 800 calories a day, roughly a third of what a body needs. Tens of thousands died, and in the middle of it, women who were pregnant kept having babies. Decades later, researchers went looking for those babies, now adults in their 50s and 60s, and found something nobody expected. The children conceived during the famine had permanently altered metabolisms, higher rates of obesity, higher rates of diabetes and heart disease. Their bodies, shaped in the womb during a season of starvation, had adjusted to expect scarcity for the rest of their lives, even though the famine ended before they were born, even though they grew up with ordinary food security. Their bodies didn't know that. They had been built for a famine that ended 9 months too early to matter, and they carried the adjustment anyway for the rest of their lives. Even more striking, some of that change showed up in their children. The grandchildren of women who starved during those 9 months, people who never missed a single meal in their entire lives, still carried measurable traces of a famine they were never even close to. Scarcity had reached forward 2 generations and left a fingerprint. That is how deep this system runs. It doesn't just remember famine across thousands of years of evolution. It can rewrite itself in 9 months and hand the update down to grandchildren who will never miss a meal. Now here's what's strange about your own body right now today. Your fat cells don't know what year it is. They don't know there's a grocery store 2 minutes away, open 24 hours, stocked every single day. As far as your biology is concerned, every calorie you don't store might be the one you needed for a famine that's coming next month. So it stores anyway, just in case. It has always stored just in case, and it has no mechanism for deciding the case no longer applies. This is why losing weight is so much harder than gaining it. Your body doesn't distinguish between voluntary dieting and involuntary starvation. When calories drop, ancient alarm systems fire. Metabolism slows down to conserve energy. Hunger hormones spike. Cravings for calorie-dense food intensify. None of this is your body betraying you. This is your body doing the one job it has done successfully for 2 million years, keeping you alive through a famine. It just can't tell the difference between a famine and a diet. And it's not only about how much you eat. It's about what you crave. Think about the foods you struggle to say no to. Not broccoli, not plain grilled chicken. It's the sugar, the fat, the salt, the combination of all three at once. That's not random. Sugar meant fast, usable energy. Fat meant the densest calorie source available, more than double the calories per gram of anything else. Salt meant your body could retain the water it needed to survive. In a world of scarcity, a food that hit all three at once wasn't a treat. It was the single richest meal you might find that week. Your brain rewarded you for eating it hard with a flood of dopamine because in the world your body was built for, that reward kept you alive. Modern food companies didn't invent this craving. They found it already installed, sitting there since before written history, and they built an entire industry around triggering it as often as possible. Food scientists have a term for the exact combination of sugar, fat, and salt that maximizes craving without ever reaching a point where your brain says stop. They call it the bliss point. It's not a metaphor, it's a measurable target, engineered in labs, tested on focus groups, refined until a chip or a soda hits that ancient reward system as precisely as possible. Every hyper-processed snack on every shelf is engineered to hit that same ancient combination, sugar, fat, salt, all stacked together, because that combination has never once failed to grab your attention. It couldn't. It's not fighting your willpower. It's answering a 2-million-year-old question your body is still asking. Is this the rich food I need to survive the next famine? The problem is the famine stopped coming. For most of human history, seasonal scarcity was simply normal. Winters were lean. Droughts happened. Hunts failed. Your body evolved inside a rhythm of feast and famine that repeated itself generation after generation without exception. And then, in an extraordinarily short window, that rhythm just stopped. Industrielle agriculture, refrigeration, global shipping, 24-hour supermarkets. In the span of a few generations, the famine that shaped every one of your ancestors simply disappeared from the world. But it never disappeared from you. Your fat cells are still listening for it. Your cravings are still preparing for it. Your metabolism still slows the moment it senses restriction, the exact same way it would have slowed during a real season of scarcity. Every part of the system that kept your ancestors alive through actual starvation is still fully armed, fully active, running 24 hours a day, waiting for an emergency that stopped arriving decades before you were even born. This is why willpower alone so often fails. You're not fighting a bad habit. You're arguing with a survival system that has a flawless track record. For 2 million years, it never let a single one of your direct ancestors starve to death before they could reproduce. Not one. It is, without exaggeration, the most successful system your body has ever run. And you're asking it to just stop based on a fact it has no way of verifying, that the famine is over. It doesn't believe you. It's never had a reason to. So the next time you're standing in front of an open fridge at 11 at night, not hungry, just looking, understand what's actually happening. That isn't weakness. That isn't a flaw in your character. That is 2 million years of famine survival, quietly checking one more time, just to be sure that the emergency is truly, finally over. It's still waiting for an answer.